Yeah, there are still many there. There are many. I believe that those people, they said that they are deep.
When you begin to hide yourself,
all the business I'm doing, how to keep business, like customer business, receipts.
Hello and welcome to Talking Migration. I am Osita Osemene. Today we'll be looking at the issues of irregular migration from a different perspective. It is a well-documented fact that despite the discovery of slave camps in Libya and repeated warnings by the European Union, African Union, and other world agencies, many Nigerians still attempt the daring route to Europe through the Sahara Desert and Mediterranean Sea. The few who make it back to the country return with tales of horror about their experiences in Libya and have warned others not to attempt the daring route. But it seems their advice may not be enough to tackle this troubling issue of irregular migration. Today, we'll be looking at the role of the church in tackling irregular migration. We'll also be looking at what the society can do to discourage others who are thinking of attempting the journey. I have two guests with me on the program who will be discussing this issue extensively. You will meet them after this short break.
On Digi 360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent.
Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country.
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly.
God forbid that I go to join that ballot.
Digi 360, providing clarity to issues.
Welcome back. Still on the program, Talking Migration. With me on the studio, I have two wonderful guests, very important personalities. One from the religious body and the other one from the film industry. Reverend Father Mazimus Okoro and Yamcho Wanri. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I'll be starting with the Reverend Father.
Yeah.
And our topic, like you said, on Talking Migration, we're talking on the role of the church and the society in tackling irregular migration, considering the menace and the continuous death and stories we have been hearing on migration issues about Nigeria and in Africa at large. From your experience as a Reverend Father and with your role as the National Project Coordinator of Celestial Don Bosco, your project has to do with issues of migration and youth development and all sorts. What is your take as a church and your role as your project of Celestial Don Bosco? What is your role? What have you to say about this, menace on irregular migration?
Thank you very much for inviting me to this talk on migration. It's an interesting one to know that in the society we still find people who are really interested in this issue that has eat up the heart of the society. Our position is not different from that of the church. And I would like to quote Pope Francis. He made a wonderful statement after his visit to Lampedusa and Lesbos, where this phenomenon of migration is very, very strong, where we have our brothers and sisters who suffer terrible abuses trying to get to Europe. He said the human promotion of migrants and their families starts from their communities of origin, where it must be guaranteed, together with the right either to immigrate or the right not to move. And that conditions for a dignified existential realization should be created. So I believe what the church does, or what the church is doing at this present moment, is to create conditions where people will realize what it means to migrate. And whatever activities we are doing keys into this program the church has established at the universal level. Now each diocese, each parish, or each organization or society or religious body or congregation is called to look at, for example, the 20 points, 20-point action points the Holy See prepared. And from there, we draw up our action plans. And one of the things we're trying to do, we the Salesians of Don Bosco, in creating awareness, is to target young people, to target people who are liable to move in search of greener pastures, people who are compelled to move because of different factors. Migration is a right that should not be denied, should not be negated. But of course, it is good to create a proper condition so that those migrating will be aware of where they are going to, how they should go about it. So one of the things we do as the project office is not only to source for projects, but at the same time to collaborate with stakeholders, people of goodwill who are interested to tackle the issue of migration. And we collaborate in this point of view.
Okay. Yeah, there have been actually series of testimonies from return migrants, you know, considering the role of some religious leaders, especially in encouraging them to travel to Europe. You know, and most of these migrants end up traveling through the land, through the desert. You know, they find themselves dying. Some of the girls, you know, find themselves into prostitution. And whenever they talk, they said they were being encouraged, they were being assisted by either a pastor or a reverend, or, you know, from several occasions, you know, with these return migrants. What have you to say about it?
Now, it's a very delicate issue in the sense that we need to understand the motives behind such promises. Okay, I've heard of different things. For example, young people who are being encouraged or who are being sent abroad because maybe someone wants to settle the family for a particular favor received. I've heard also of politicians promising to send people abroad if they have been voted for. So it's a complex phenomenon which I wouldn't like to go into. But what I would say is that young people need to be aware. I think the spirit of information is very fundamental if we really have to tackle this issue. To migrate is not a problem, but to migrate legally is our challenge. Promising a young person greener pasture, telling him life is better in Europe, of course, to an extent, yes, it could be true. But our young people need to be informed. They need to get the necessary information because sometimes it might not be as green, you know, as they are being told. And sometimes some of them are naive. So they jump into conclusions or they make hasty conclusions without really understanding the pros and cons involved in such, you know, journey. So I believe one of the things we can do in tackling this issue is, first of all, to form the conscience of our leaders, the conscience of our religious leaders as well. You know, in tackling this issue, it is not enough to promise a young person you will sponsor that person to Europe or I don't know, wherever. The young person must know what is he going to do there, through which means is he going to get there in Europe, and probably when he gets there, what can he offer to the society? Because sometimes the problem is you get there and you do not get inserted in the society. And you find yourself doing a whole lot of issues. For example, during my stay in Italy, I stayed for almost 6 to 7 years. I had the opportunity of meeting a lot of young persons from Nigeria, from Sierra Leone, from Ghana, from Mali, mostly from West Africa, who were deceived, you know, into traveling by land. They were promised, okay, you're going to study. They were promised a lot of things. But at the end of the day, they discovered that those promises made were not kept. So some of them eventually feel abused even before they got to Europe. So the problem, I believe, one of the challenges we are facing is that of, you know, getting the information across to the young people, getting proper platforms and channels through which we can educate the conscience of the young people, we can educate their minds, we can enlighten them, because the problem, like I said, is very gross.
Yeah, Father, I think I appreciate what you have just said, but how do you think the church can really go far in these ensuring that this issue of migration, irregular migration, is being tackled? Because you have said so much about how we're going to engage the youths and how we're going to reach out to the populace. But how do you think this can work? Because from what you have just said, Celestia Don Bosco is 1 out of a million in some organization, among the organizations that are really doing this in the Catholic Church. Do you think, are there other organizations that are also in the same field?
Yeah, I feel a lot is going on, like I said, but one of our major challenges, especially in this part of the world, is that we lack, let me put it, the channel in making what we are doing known to the people, for example, okay? I believe we need to really make what we are doing known to the people. That is one. And then secondly, I believe we need to organize an awareness campaign. We need to target young people. We need to target those families that are liable to move because of the situation we've created in our own nation. Once we target these groups, we can be able to pass important and vital information. Now we are not tackling the idea of them migrating or not. We are tackling the idea of them migrating in the legal way. Okay? I'm not saying everybody has to be in Nigeria, for example. Yeah. Okay? But if you're to migrate, what are those conditions that are necessary for you to migrate legally? These are things we need to do. And a lot is going on. For example, recently we just concluded an awareness campaign sponsored by VIS, Voluntariato Internazionale per lo Sviluppo, which we had to target young people. We went to schools, we collaborated with NAPTIP, for example. We talked to corpers, we moved to parishes. Even recently, with my colleague in the office, we had to go to St. Leo, one of the biggest parishes here in Lagos, to talk to the young people about illegal migration and also all the issues linked with human trafficking. And it's very, very amazing to see that young people ask a lot of questions. We sense a lot of ignorance, of course, because we, as a society, as a body, sometimes lack to talk about this phenomenon, and it's really eating the heart of our society. So we must come out of our shell to talk about these things. We must talk about them in our schools. We must talk about them in our parishes. We must talk about them in different societies where the young people belong to. Clubs, sport groups, music groups. These are the areas where we can really engage young people. Of course, we need to move to get them from what they like, and then we pass the information needed. We have to be creative. We have to be skillful, in passing this information. And of course, one of them is also the use of media, because our young people, it's not enough producing volumes of documents, because in our society today, young people, most of the majority of them hardly read. But we need to get the right platform through which we can disseminate this information, because it's very, very important and vital. And this is the way we can reach to our young people and then spread the information.
Thank you very much, Father. I'll come back shortly to you. The filmmaker and the photographer, Yancho.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you are a professional and you belong to the society. What angle can you say the society will have to contribute to tackle these menace of irregular migration in Nigeria, considering what has been going on and every day you hear of deaths, you hear of rescue, you hear of evacuation, you hear of returns. What can the society do from your own professional aspect?
Well, looking at it from the aspect of an artist, or from the point of view of an artist, I think we all have, each and every one of us as artists have a role to play in this, because if you're someone that finds yourself in a position where you can put out content that raises awareness, then what exactly are you doing? Speak up, use the skill, the talents you've gotten and the medium through which you work to put out the information and to raise awareness. So for example, like you mentioned, maybe writing or churning out documents is not the most effective way. We look at what I say pop culture now, or the society as it is now. Content is king. Everybody wants something to watch. Everybody wants something to do on their phones. Nowadays, we see content even being condensed into shorter, smaller formats. So it's to think and realize, okay, we can capitalize on this. A lot of young people would rather sit and watch a film. They like visual stimulation. They want to be able to see it there. So we can capitalize on that. Make material, not just thinking about making money, but making a difference. So create content that will help raise awareness. For example, I myself am working on a film, which I want to put out to help raise awareness about the dangers of illegal migration, because I've heard too many sad stories. And then I sat and thought to myself, what am I doing? If I'm hearing this thing and I'm saying, oh, it bothers me, and then I'm not doing anything about it. As an artist, you've sort of, would I say, taken up the responsibility to make a change in society through your medium. So that is one way we can engage the young people, put the news out there. And if you do it in a way that is also entertaining to them, because the best way to get information through is to make the person interested, to make them buy into it. And the best way to do that is to captivate their minds. When you do that, obviously, they'll tell their next friend, oh, have you seen this film, blah, blah, blah. It passes around, they talk about it, talk about the things that happen in the film. It could be a film, documentary, it could even be photographs, whichever way you can gather information and put it out there for them to see and for them to connect with and for them to learn and be savvy about these things, so that if they're presented with these situations, if they come upon these situations, they know what to do and how to go about it so that they don't fall into that trap.
Yeah. If I may ask, from your experience, can you say the society has done a lot to contribute? Because from what you're saying, you're talking from the aspect of your own profession and from a personal point of view, what you can contribute, being that you're passionate. Can you say the larger society has done enough? Because I believe that if they have done enough, we wouldn't have been in this situation. But can you say they have done enough over the years?
You mean to prevent this illegal?
Prevent or to,
I don't feel like enough is being done, because like you said, if enough was being done, we probably wouldn't be here talking about it and trying to still fight the problem. I mean, you look at illegal migration is not something that just started yet. It seems to now just be gaining attention. Before the whole story broke out about the slave houses in Libya, a lot of people didn't even know that this thing was going on. A lot of people were not aware about the whole illegal migration going through the desert. Some of the people that knew didn't even know the things that go on in the journey. So I think a lot still has to be done to raise awareness and help the situation.
Okay, but before now, there have been series of enlightenment campaigns, themes. Some years back, there was a film that was produced by Wale Adenuga's production, that call it Toha or something like that, And there are a series of, films and documentaries that have come up, Is it that it's not enough to educate the people, or there's still more to be done, at least from that industry?
I think it's never enough, really, because if you said, for example, you've written a book, if you're the only person that writes a book and you stop, your book will get so far and wide, but there might be areas that you're not able to reach. I don't think it's enough to say, okay, one person has done it, okay, let's leave it. The message still has to continue to go out, because that film will be released, it will reach the audience it reaches. Like I said, it might not reach a certain area or a certain demographic. It's left for someone else to come from this angle. And there's always different sides to the story, different stories to tell. I mean, you, for example, met a lot of people on your journey. Imagine all the different stories. Even though it's the same circumstances, everybody's story is personal, and everybody's story can touch people in different ways. So I don't think it's enough to just do one and leave it there, or say, okay, let's make one film. So, well, somebody has talked about it, let me leave it. If we don't continue to talk about it, if we don't continue to put the word out, then it will sort of fizzle out the same way.
Persistency.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
don't you think it also has to do with approach?
In what?
Approach, in how you carry out, how you disseminate information.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. Okay. Definitely. You have to, it has to be, would I say, calculated, not in terms of, calculated in terms of like being aware that the message you're putting out is going to affect people in a certain way, and not to be too lax about it, to ensure that you're putting out the right information and giving the right point of view, and not doing it in a way where you end up encouraging people to go this way when you know you're trying to tell them, okay, this thing is not good, don't do it. Like we had this chit chat earlier about the one that where they ended up sort of telling people about the success stories of migrants that had gone through this illegal route. Yes, we do know that there is a little number of people that do get there. But then again, even if you say, okay, fine, they made it there alive, what sort of conditions do they live in when they get there? Tell the truth about that. Let's not try and mask it. At the end of the day, you have to look at your own intention, which is why I said it's about being conscious about it and not thinking only about promoting your work. Okay, I've made a film. I want it to go this far. Be conscious about it. Put your conscience in it and know that the real reason we're here is to tell the truth about it.
Yeah.
It's not an easy journey. And if you ask me, I don't think anybody should bother doing that. No matter how bad the situation is, I don't think it's worth the risk and the kind of things that travelers go through on that route. No matter how difficult the journey, your situation in your country is, it's really not worth the risk. So we, as filmmakers and people in the media world, need to be conscious of that, and we need to be conscious of the message that we're putting out to tell the truth. Integrity is very important in things like this.
Okay. So what kind of strategies now have you developed to ensure that, from your own perspective, that you're going to use to contribute in ensuring that you assist? Because I can see you're passionate from the way you're talking now. You are being beyond professionalism. There's a kind of passionate approach to it. What strategy have you developed to ensure that you become a part of the ambassadors? Yeah.
For me, I felt like it was not enough just to base my, creation or film on the things I've heard. I wanted to hear personal stories, because it's easy to hear, oh, they told me that one guy did this and did that. But I want to go down to the individual and speak to them personally, one-on-one, and gather their stories and all the details, get the truth about it. And then from there also, not just stop at publishing the work. After that, follow up. It's easy to say, okay, I've done it, I've finished, I've put it out, it's there online or on DVD, whatever, but is it really reaching the people that it should reach? Because if I post it online, you look at the people that are going through this or that choose to do this, how many of them really have steady internet access to go watch a film online or will even know that the film has been published? So I'm looking to take it into the remote areas as well, show it there. The people that perhaps don't have access to the information that I'm able to access, that is where I come in as a bridge. And that's where this project I'm working on comes in, is to bridge that gap, to get to people that are not able to access this information and don't get to know the truth about illegal migration.
Okay, Yamcha, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll be going for a short break now, and we'll come back shortly.
Corruption not in my country. Dalali, my business has been going down. I need your help.
Bawahala. I will show you the formula. I use some bad chemical which I mix, so produce the drugs which gives me up to 4 times profit. Imagine power.
So you are one of the people that is killing millions and millions of Nigerians in this country. Dalali, was it not you last 2 months that was complaining about the fuel scarcity in this country, that the government is corrupt?
Have I killed anybody in your family?
You don't have to kill any of my family members directly. Every Nigerian you kill is my family. Selling of fake drugs, expired drugs, putting drugs in wrong packets, all that are acts of corruption. This is corruption, not in my country. CIA.
Me? Fake drug? Now corruption? Allah kia.
Corruption not in my country. Stop corruption now.
Welcome back. Yes, I'm still with my guests, Reverend Father Maximus Okoro and Yamcho Wanri. Yeah, Reverend Father, I'll be coming back to you again. Yeah, from what you have said, the church is doing a lot. But considering what is on ground and the nature, the proactive nature of the smugglers and the human traffickers, the way a lot of people are being moved in thousands, daily, weekly, and do you think the church has what it takes to really counter the issue of irregular migration?
Yeah, I would say the church has what it takes, in the sense that a lot of people are being trained, okay? Not just priests and those who are in key positions, but a lot of people are being trained, and we have also developed these kind of train the trainers program, where we try to conscientize the people in order for them to become ambassadors also to, to other people, they will meet. And I feel the church is really doing a lot when it comes to that through, different projects, different meeting groups, clubs being created, in order to raise awareness. And also, I feel that one of the things the church is trying to do is not just the awareness campaign, but also to empower the young people, to let them know that their quest and search for meaning in life could be also realized in the society in which they are. We understand the sudden outbreak of migration, in a very large, state. It's a symptom that in the society something is not too cool, let me put it that way. Something is not, really going the way it should go, because young people are vibrant, energetic. They want to contribute to the economic growth of the society in which they are. But the problem we have, sometimes young people are not really considered. So one of the things is to empower them so that they will become useful to the society in which they are, so that they would have something to offer to the society. And I think a lot is being done. We have a lot of Catholic schools, a lot of professional centers, a lot of technical training centers, a lot of short-term courses for young people to equip them, to send them to the society in order for them to be relevant, to tell them they can make it where they are. You don't necessarily need to go out in order to be relevant. You can be relevant in your society. And in this, I would say the Catholic Church in general is really, really doing, a whole lot of work. Like I said, the problem is sometimes we do not make our work known. We do not target a larger group. We are so much comfortable in the small area we are. So one of the challenges we will have, or I would say we need to work on, is making what we do known to the people and targeting, large number of young persons.
Okay, so which means for more sustainability, there is still a lot to be done.
Of course.
Ensuring stepping it down to the common people in the society, and the strategies, has it been mapped out?
Yeah, now it's a complex question to answer. I can only speak from the selection point of view. What we do, okay, we try constantly to question ourselves and to read the signs of time. A lot of things are happening. Why? What could be the cause? We go into analysis, and after doing the analysis, we try to come up with lines of action. Like I said, Salesians of Don Bosco, we are just one among the so many religious bodies and men and women of goodwill who are into this, who are trying to tackle this phenomenon. So what we do is, after analyzing, after studying the situation and coming up with lines of action, we try to implement it. We try to come up with concrete activities and target a specific number of young persons. Of course, we need to collaborate with other stakeholders who are interested, and a lot is being done, this particular moment. For example, some of the young people who return, we are collaborating with a group of sisters to make sure that, especially for the ladies, to make sure that they get reinserted back to the society. They get a home, for example. They learn a trade. Because some, when they come back, they find it difficult to go back to their families because they consider themselves to be failures. So in this situation, we try to come up with a home, try to accompany them for them to get reinserted back to the society.
Yeah. From my experience so far in this field, I've observed that the Catholic Church is at the forefront in terms of trying to ensure youth development and issues of fighting irregular migration, ensuring proper migration. I've seen organizations like your organization, Celestia Don Bosco. We've seen the Caritas group. We've seen JDPC. They all work on this. Is it possible for a kind of synergy or collaboration with other religious bodies? Because we shouldn't really just restrict this to only the Catholic bodies alone, because we're talking about Christians now.
Yeah, exactly.
You understand?
Yeah.
So is it possible to, extend your hand of activities or relationship to other religious bodies so that they can? Because if you look at some of these migrants, when they return back and they interview them, they keep on calling, when they say reverend, when they say pastor, You know, it affects anything that has to do with religion, that is Christian religion, you know, and it affects everybody. So is there any way the Catholic Church can extend, you know, that relationship to other religious brothers and sisters, organizations, so that they can also imbibe this culture of educating the youths and ensuring that they build a kind of structure that the Catholic Church is trying to build up, you know, to ensure that this menace is stopped? Is there any plan like that, or can there be anything like that in the future?
Yeah, I think there can be the possibility for us to collaborate. Like, okay, a few weeks ago, we had this seminar in St. Leo's where we gathered together with different, you know, I'll put it, commissions and agents that are into, you know, fighting human trafficking. And there I happen to have met the diocesan coordinator, who is in charge also of the justice and peace development, whatever, in the diocese. So we spoke. So we tried to look at what we can do, how we can collaborate together. Of course, this is an initiative that is still trying to come up. But I think there is possibility for us to create that platform, because what we need to do is to create an avenue where we can meet and we can exchange ideas, where we can share our experiences. Then from there, we can come up with strategic plans on how to collaborate. Because the issue or the phenomenon of human trafficking, illegal migration, touches the question of the human person. And the human person is very essential. The human dignity has to do with Christians, with Muslims, with non-believers, because I believe this is what we share in common. It is not just about being Catholic or not being Catholic, because it touches the question of the human person. And once it touches the question of a human person, it becomes a global issue. And we need to tackle global issue from a global point of view as well. We need to come up together to form a synergy and to see how we can tackle this issue. I think what we are working towards now is to get a platform where we can come together, share our ideas, make analysis, and then see how we can move forward. And I see it happen, you know, in the near future.
Yeah, I think that is very important. That will be very important. Yeah, I will still come back to you. Yamcho, what is your own perception and your view about the society being proactive, you know, to ensuring that this issue that occurs every day and occurs every time is really taken down to the common man, to ensure that the common man, like you said before, you mentioned about using different approaches, ensuring that you capture them, you know, you make them to a kind of be interested in what you have produced. You know, what way can you, as a professional, especially in the filmmaking, also collaborate with other people to ensure? Because I found out that I think we have a problem of not being persistent in whatever we are doing. In Nigeria, we have this kind of culture of silence and culture of spontaneous reaction. You know, we react when there is a problem. We don't react continuously to ensure that whatever we are saying, you know, it keeps on ringing as a bell in the ears of our youths and our people. So what kind of modalities do you have in place as a filmmaker and as a professional photographer? How can you make it possible, carrying other people, relating with other professionals to ensure that this message is carried out on a daily basis, continuously?
I think, first of all, it's worth noting that apart from raising awareness, like the Reverend said, is to also find ways to tackle the problem. Because if something is chasing, if you walk down the street and a dog is chasing you, you won't stop running until either the dog has stopped chasing you, or someone has caught the dog, or something has stopped the dog from chasing you, Abby. So apart from raising awareness about it, we also have to look at ways to, will I say, incite the government and the necessary organizations to improve the situation. Because no matter what you say, when you look at the situation, it all boils down to these migrants trying to run away from hardship, from some sort of problem, from one problem or the other. So we also have to find ways to tackle those things, sort out the issue of unemployment, all the social amenities, the different things that will drive them, first of all, to want to leave their country. And then looking at it from a filmmaking perspective, filmmaking naturally is a collaborative art. I can't, as one person, be the person to operate the camera and direct the actors and record the sound and do the data transfers and do everything myself. So it involves collaboration, whether I like it or not, whether anybody likes it or not. Because to create a film, not just any type of film, but a good film, or if a film that's efficient in passing the message across, you need to collaborate with people. So that's what will entail looking for people to bring on the team as well. For example, as I'm doing my film, I also want the process of creating it to be documented. So I'll need someone to do that as well. I want to make sure it's well produced. I need a good producer for that. So as I bring these people onto the project, I'm raising awareness as well, because perhaps this producer I'm looking to work with has heard of it but hasn't really paid attention to it. As I approach him or her, give them more details about it, bring them into the light about what really is going on. That piques their interest. They come on board. The message spreads as well as we build a team to carry out this project that we want to do.
Okay. Yeah, Reverend, I don't know if you have observed that parents, the community, play a major role in encouraging irregular migration.
Yeah.
You understand? In terms of putting their children under pressure, this issue of ensuring that they get rich at all costs, comparing themselves with another family that have made it. Don't you think the church has a role to play on that? I think I look at it from the aspect of value, and I feel the church has a role to play on that aspect. Because you have been mentioning from what we have been discussing, we have been talking about the youth. Parents has a role to play, and the parents are very key in the church, especially where they have the mothers, the Christian mothers, and the different associations of fathers and all these things. Don't you think we can also, do a lot with the parents in the church? And is there any plan like that or a strategy working with the mothers and the fathers?
Yeah, definitely. The family is very fundamental. It's the basic unit of life. It's where everything starts. And once the family is solid, you have solid young people. Like the present Pope would say, or like the Catholic Church would say, that the family is a domestic church where we pass values for life. Even before the church, start thinking of the church, everything starts from the family. So your question, your preoccupation is a valid one. We have to collaborate with the families. And I think the best way for us to collaborate with the families is creating awareness, because it still boils down, to what we have been saying from the very beginning. Some parents are very naive, some are ignorant. But in this case, ignorance is not an excuse, in the sense that we have to tackle it, okay? We have to come up with intervention plans that will enable us to talk to parents, to educate them first, because if this is prevented from the family, avoiding unnecessary competitions, between families, and also the type of feedbacks they get from those who probably went and, I would say, in brackets, succeeded. Sometimes the information they sent home is quite different from what they're living there. Creating this kind of awareness and creating the process of reflection, is very, very fundamental, it's very, very important. We might not be able to convince, people 100%, but triggering this process of reflection in the family, and the families helping their children to reflect on this, and also the school, the government, the church, I think can, help in tackling this issue. So, yeah, your preoccupation is quite valid, and I think the church has a lot to do, when it comes to this. We have to create, platforms and avenues where we can really engage parents and also educate them on this issue, that not all that glitters, at school. Sometimes it could be the other way around. And so we need to create more time, to have this kind of dialogues with parents.
Okay. Yeah, I still have another question for you, especially in the aspect of some of these people that have returned, because you mentioned that you're working with returnees. With some organization, you collaborate with some organization to assist them. How do the church or your organization help them to, to kind of come out of stigmatization? Because a lot of them have gone through a lot. They have been traumatized, especially the women. There are some of them were raped. Some of them they have been dehumanized. How can, apart from providing them shelter and maybe what they can eat, means of livelihood, how can the church assist in helping them to come out from this, mood they are, the traumatized mood they are?
Yeah, one would say providing shelter. Providing shelter comes with a lot of activities, in-house activities.
Okay.
I use the word accompaniment. They don't just come, you give them shelter and give them food, and after some time you send them home. There's a whole lot of process involved, where we bring in experts as well. Some of them have gone through psychological traumas, and they need to get healed, or if not, accompanied, in the process of healing. So we collaborate also with a lot of experts when it comes to that, trying to help them go through the process. And at the same time, I said something very important, that of empowering them, at least letting them learn a particular skill. Because you're going back to the society not to be vulnerable. At least you're going back to the society to offer something. And that is one of the most efficient ways to help them get reinserted back to the society. And I think in this, the church, I know we still have a lot to do. We, as a religious body, as an organization, we still have a lot to do. But at the same time, it's capital intensive, and we need different stakeholders, to come in and to support. Because I believe if we have all it takes, definitely we can respond, in a plausible way to curb this situation. So,
okay, I will come back to you again, Yamcho. From the societal angle, what do you think the society can do to ensure that we make this issue of irregular migration less interesting? Because it's a whole lot of terrible issue, and we cannot tell people not to travel. You understand? Because everybody actually wants to live a good life.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to make it in life, But making it in life, you have to choose the good way. Traveling, you must travel the proper way, like we're always saying. So how can the society make this less interesting, especially from your own professional point of view? How can it be made less interesting?
Number one, if I speak about it from a filmmaking point of view, is, like I said before, showing the reality of the situation.
That is the dangers.
The dangers, yes. Yeah. Letting them know that it's not a smooth sailing ride. It's not a joy ride. You're not going to be on any luxury bus. Nobody's coming to give you food and refreshments on the way. You're putting your life at risk. You're risking, you're literally facing death going on this journey. So it's number one, using whatever medium we can. For example, for me as a filmmaker and photographer, using visual art to raise awareness about that, to tell the truth about the dangers of it. And also, like he mentioned, people that may have gotten there and then come back with a different story.
That's true life experience.
Yes, true life experience. Not just, true life experience can also be
different ways. It could be success story, it could be unsuccessful story.
And even the unsuccessful stories they can add some Maggi and salt and say, oh, I'm a car dealer, I'm with this. When truly they're really suffering there because you've gone through a legal route. You're not going to get a legal job.
No.
And if you don't have a legal job, you're not going to be treated right because people know they have something to hold over you.
Yeah.
If you don't do what I say, I will report you to the police. I'll call immigration here and they'll send you back or torture you or do whatever they want to do with you. So there's that fear that makes you end up doing underhanded, under-the-table jobs that you hardly even make enough to survive. So we have to raise awareness and bring this to light as well to say, look, even the people that you think have gotten there and they're chilling, they're making it big, it's not the reality. This, and this is the reality. You're going to go there, you're going to meet these problems, you're going to go there. And also to make them realize, if it was such a land of milk and honey, do you think their people also will be facing unemployment? They have their own issues to face as well. So if the citizens themselves are looking for jobs, trying to make their own lives better, do you think it is you as an illegal migrant that will be given those privileges? No. The privileges will be given to the citizens first. And then before they will even consider people that have legally migrated, let alone you that have come as an illegal migrant. So it's not easy. You're facing death in going through that journey, and then to end up in a place where what you've run is not no better than what you've run away from in the first place. But like I said before, the first thing you want to do before telling people don't do this is to sort out the problem they're facing here. It's like if we were in a house together, maybe you're in your house, your children are there, and it's so hot, it's so boiling hot, and they want to take off their clothes to relieve themselves from the heat, and you tell them, no, you can't take off your clothes. We can't really do that until you sort out the problem, quench the heat first, then you can tell them, okay, you don't need to...
And you think is actually achievable to quench the heat before, trying to see how we can solve this? Because quenching the heat means providing an enabling environment for youths, to get employed, for families that, claim to be poor to at least have something to do. Which, do you see it coming up soon? Because I think the first thing I feel we should start doing is to ensure that we'll we reduce the number of deaths. And the only way we can do it is, like I said, make it less attractive. Because as I'm talking to you now, people are moving.
Yes.
Even today, people will move this evening, people will move tomorrow morning. Yes, Libya has closed, but another road has opened. You understand? So I think what I'm looking at is how can we, as a kind of stakeholders, really ensure that we reduce the number? Because I've always mentioned that the smugglers and human traffickers are very, very proactive. They have a way of ensuring that their business keeps on going.
Yes, when you close the door, they open the window.
So I think we should be looking at it from our own perspective, how we are going to do it. How can we achieve that? Because it's very important. You see, you gave a point. You said, exposing the dangers, which is a key. I think another way I feel is also good is to be consistent and persistent in our messages. Because I believe that people, when they continue to hear a particular thing and hear a particular thing in different ways, like you said, creating ways of ensuring that the messages are being, I think it will go a long way.
Definitely.
Because like from your point, saying that the government will automatically, it will be difficult for the government to provide a solution immediately. So we also need to encourage ourselves to be, since we are passionate about it, we should be consistent. I think also from the church, I don't know if we are sharing the same view.
Sure, of course, definitely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Also keeping in mind that migration, we are talking about the illegal migration, okay? Because young people may decide to migrate for different purposes. Maybe for studies, maybe for professional stuff and all the rest, okay? This, if we go through the legal way, we encourage, because we also need this communication with other nations, We need also to enrich one another. But when it comes to like illegal migration, this is where we really have to invest our energy, because first, you endanger your life, you are abused as a person, and at the end of the day, you get there and you discover that it is not the way you thought it was, okay? So, I believe we can do a lot. The dissemination of information is very, very fundamental. And also, making those who have had that experience to come and talk about the experience, it's very, very fruitful from experience. Some years ago, when I was in Ghana, we had the opportunity of inviting a girl who went illegally and found herself in Poland, was abused, was raped, and a lot of things happened, When she came back and was sharing her own stories, we saw the difference. It made the impact it created in the young person. Because this is not just what you are hearing. You are seeing the person live.
Real life story.
Yeah? The person is sharing his story, crying and weeping. And you're seeing the pains. You need not to be told. You're seeing the pains. So I think this is one of the things also the church is trying to do, to get in contact, in touch with these kind of persons, to encourage them, after the process of healing, to become ambassadors, to other people, to other target groups who may likely, embark on this kind of journey.
I think that is a very good, approach. It will go a long way, because if we continue to wait for the society, especially the government, to kind of provide an enabling environment immediately to stop it, I think we'll be deceiving ourselves. I think the role we need to play now is to ensure that everybody is carried along, and we use those that have gone through that experience to share it, and also I will also want to find out what kind of advice from the society, that is from your professional point of view, what kind of advice will you give to other people in the society, especially those that are not do not see this as a kind of an interest area, or those that are not willing to, some of your colleagues, that might not see it as a viable industry to go into. What is my business? What kind of advice do you have for them? Because I believe that is a collective responsibility. We are losing lives, we are losing souls. What kind of advice will you give to them?
We're definitely losing lives and losing souls. I mean, I went to, in the course of doing my research for this project, I went to somewhere in Gambia called Kemoto, and I found out that there was no young boys in that village. I got there were old men, fathers, mothers, and then little children, some young girls, but all the young men were gone. And I asked them, like, where are all the Okorobia in this place? Like, where have they gone to? And like, they've all left.
Vibrant youths.
Yes, the ones that are supposed to be the ones that are challenging things and taking up using their vibrancy and their power and their youthfulness to bring about change and do different things in the society have left. So now we're left with the older generation that are no longer strong enough to do certain things. So yes, it does affect all of us, whether we want to see it or not. It affects all of us, because what makes up a country's economy is the workforce, isn't it? It's the number of people. That's why they say countries like India and China are taking over in world economy, because they have the workforce, they have the hands to do things. So if all our young people are gradually filtering out, that's our workforce reducing. That's our manpower going. And manpower is very important in doing things in the society, right? So if we continue to let that happen, if we continue to let all the young people be carried away by these illusions of greener pastures, then we're going to suffer for it as a country, as a community, as a family as well. Because everything boils down, like you said, it starts from the family unit, right? What makes up a country? First is the family. The family makes the smaller units, that makes the smaller compound, then the village, then the community, then the nation, right? Before the different nations make up the world. So we need to look at it from that perspective and understand that it affects all of us. It really does affect all of us.
Yeah. So it's a big problem.
It is.
It's a big problem. So, Reverend, what advice do you have to churches and the society as well on how we can, come out of this menace?
Mine will be an invitation to remember that we are in a global village. Okay, the world is a global village. And that issues affecting an individual affect everybody living in that global village. Okay, in the sense that we cannot toil with the human dignity. And if we have passion, if we want to be our brother's keeper, we cannot remain indifferent in the face of such menace, because it is an attack on the human dignity, not just to a particular person, not just to a particular nation. So once we develop this, way of thinking, we can see this phenomenon as something that regards each and every one of us. And once we have this understanding, collaboration becomes easier. Like I said before, what brings us together is not so much the fact that we belong to different churches, but the fact that we are human beings. And this is very, very fundamental. We share something in common. We all want to be meaningful in life. We are all seeking for meaning in life. And once we don't find it, we go extra miles, because we want to be recognized, we want to be relevant to the society in which we are. So once we have this at the back of our mind, we cannot remain indifferent in the face of suffering brothers and sisters. Like Pope Francis would say, our suffering brothers and sisters in the flesh. We cannot remain indifferent. So my invitation is that let us not put, social interest, economic interest at the forefront. because a lot is being done, but motivated by different interests. Let us put the human person before. Let us not put ideologies, because sometimes what we do is being affected by by different ideologies, by different interests that are hidden behind. But once we have the interest of the human person in the forefront, we can always collaborate as a family and as a global village, because the world is a global village, and each individual living in that world forms part of the community of that same global village.
Yeah, thank you very much, Reverend, and thank you, Yamsho.
Thank you.
Well, that is it on the program. There's no doubt that stopping this issue of irregular migration will take a joint effort from all sectors as a collective responsibility. Join us next week to look at more issues bordering on irregular migration and migration in general. I remain yours, Osita Osemene.